Expressed by the host of Autism-Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
It nice if I unmuted myself. It's that kind of a day. So sorry.
Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning. I was saying good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and I'm here with the fabulous Dr. Doreen January, and she is currently on her phone, but at some point we might be able to get her on a different device, but we're just thrilled and happy to have her here with us because she's an amazing. And she is, we have lots of experts on the show, but I gotta say, and I don't mean to make anybody else feel bad, but she's the most wonderful. So there we go.
So kind. Thank you, Shannon.
No, it's true. And she's been working in this field for many, many, many years, many more than anybody would believe to look at her, because you look like you're 18 right now.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You do. You do. But she's been working in this field for a very long time, helping individuals on the autism spectrum and helping their families to better help them. And so she's a wealth of knowledge, and she joins us when she can on Wednesdays. We haven't had her for the last couple of weeks, so it's a big treat for us to have her back. Welcome back, Dr. January.
Oh, thank you so much, Shannon. It's nice to be back, and I apologize for not being here the last few weeks.
Oh, we understand you are a busy person with a lot of things to do and a lot of people to help. We're just grateful for when we have you. So, and thrilled to have you back. I do want to say to folks that there are lots of ways to connect with us. I know that many of you are just tuning in and watching us for the first time. And this show, our motto here is that we're here to give you information and inspiration to try to help you to get to whatever next level you're trying to get to. And this show is for the larger autism community. So that starts with individuals who are on the spectrum, of course, and then it includes everyone who loves them. All the people who care about them, the spouses, the brothers, the sisters, the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the teachers, the therapists, everybody who cares about somebody who's on the autism spectrum. We welcome all of you to this conversation about how we can get to real progress that is meaningful to those individuals so that they are treated with the respect and the dignity and get the jobs and the housing and all the things that they so richly deserve. So, and during this hour, we're going to be live and interactive, and there are lots of ways to connect with us. You can be watching us live right now on our homepage, autism-live.com, but you can also be watching us on YouTube, on Periscope, on Facebook Live, and Twitter. We're live on Twitter. How could I forget Twitter? And then later we will podcast. It will still be available in all those places, but later we will podcast as a free podcast to download on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Deezer. So if there's a place that you would like us to be, our sort of criteria is that we want to be someplace that's free to people where they can watch this at their leisure, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Don't forget that many people write in and say to us, I wish that it was available as just an audio podcast so that I could take you in the car or on a walk. You absolutely can. I just want to point out that on most of the places that we podcast, you can get just the audio. And the great thing about iTunes is you can choose. Do you want audio only, or do you want picture and sound? So Dr. January, we're going to be asking her some questions, And now we've got two of you now. It's exciting.
Oh, that's wonderful.
There we go.
If you have two of me, then I can always turn one off. But
yeah, that's wonderful.
I can't see you in either one. So,
oh dear. Well, now all I'm seeing is your phone. There we go. So Dr. Graham-Pichet is here for this hour to answer questions from you wherever you are in the world. We have a couple that I cherry picked from the last 48 hours, but you guys can be writing in on all those features that we were telling you about. In fact, on autism-live.com, you can write in for, and it's completely anonymous. There's a chat button at the bottom, write in. It comes in right here on this iPad that I have right here so that I can see it in almost real time. But I do encourage people to write in early. I know what happens is that we get on a roll and then I always like get when it's about 40 minutes into the hour because there's a bunch of questions and I go, oh no, we're not going to get them all in. And I always feel bad about that. So try to write in as early as you can. Now, Dr. Graham-Pichet, and she's going to answer your questions in a general manner because even though she's an amazing expert, there is no expert in any field that could answer individual specific questions in this format because she doesn't have eyes on the situation. It's as simple as that. And to act as though she could would be disrespectful to those individuals. But she's going to answer your questions in a general nature to help you to be able to go back to the experts that have eyes on the situation and maybe be a little bit better informed to know what to start by asking. So there we go. We had somebody who wrote in, and I believe people are already saying hello, hello, hello. Okay, so somebody wrote in, and I think it's the same person. So I sent you some of the questions, Dr. Graham-Pichet. I'm gonna skip down to the second part, but I believe that the first two are the same person. Hello, ma'am. My son is going to be 7 years old in August. He was diagnosed with developmental delays at age of 1.5. He's not walking, but we can make him stand with the support of the bed, and then he manages for a few minutes. He doesn't respond to his name, but sometimes he reacts to different things. He is not speaking, but says a few words as baba, mama, papa, that too, and continuing. But he plays on the floor, rolling, standing till knees, bend with keeping his legs upwards and lying down. If you put him in a walker, he goes backwards sometimes. He always puts his hands in his mouth and plays with his clothes on the face and starts laughing and enjoying. Is there any exercise or how can we help him to learn to walk and talk and all the different things? Please do help is what they're asking.
That's and then wonderful. Can you hear me okay, Shannon?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think we're on just a little bit of a delay, but I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. So I feel really bad for this family. My goodness, what they must be going through with the child at 7. I'm wondering if they're in the US or if we know where the question is coming from, because I really think this is a serious enough case where you should have professional help. You should possibly have some physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then of course you can add to that yourself and you can do a lot of work yourself. But I really feel like your child, if he is on a walker and able to move backwards, then possibly with a lot of physical and occupational therapy, he might actually be able to walk, which I think is very important. And then, of course, all the other skills that you need to teach. If he is already saying some sounds, then language becomes very important. I would ask, how is he communicating his needs right now? How is he letting you know what he wants or doesn't want? It becomes very, very important. If you are not in the US, or even if you are in the US and you need, you can't get professional help right now, I really recommend that you go on our skills website, skillsforautism.com. That you'll find a lot of lessons there. There's a section for motor skills. There's also a section for language. It'll tell you some of the things that you need to teach, and step by step how to proceed with teaching both mobility and language. And then, of course, you can also use our IBT website, which is Institute for Behavioral Training, where you'll learn some of the ABA techniques. But I really think initially it would be wonderful if you were able to connect with a physical therapist or occupational therapist and work on some motor skills. Gross motor, fine motor, all of those types of skills are very important. And they will actually help oral motor, which will then be necessary for language.
And this parent, they reached out in 2 different ways, which I encourage people to reach out to us, you know, and that's why I think that it's the same parent. So they also emailed me. So I'll be able to email this clip back to her in case she's not watching right now, and maybe we can help to connect her to more things. I don't believe that they are in the United States, and that makes it harder in some cases, depends on where you are. But I just want to say that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, there is always progress that can be made. And I want to say that for a very specific reason, because sometimes we're told that our kids have fill in the blank, and that's the end of the story, period, full stop, end of the story. And it never is. It never is. Everyone has the ability to grow and to learn at different rates and to different ends. But progress can always be made. It might mean picking what you want to make progress on and focusing on that and having it take a long time. But progress is always available for all of us and for all of our kids. And that makes my heart feel better. You know what I mean, Dr. Grampiche?
100%, absolutely. Any progress gives us, you know, more hope. And then, of course, the more hope we have, the more harder we work, and all of our kids make progress. So it's just about finding the right ways.
Wonderful. So we've got a bunch of people who have written in, and I want to say hello to a bunch of people. Emma, we're saying hello to you. Rosangala, Bonnie, and Lauren, and Lourdes, and I want to, so somebody has asked the question, is repeating yourself part of autism?
Yes, it could be. You know, I don't know the exact circumstances, but there is one of the symptoms of autism is what we call echolalia. And this is when a child hears something and they just repeat it. Sometimes you'll see it in the form of repeating sounds, like e, like that. Or sometimes you'll see it in the form of repeating full sentences, even that the child heard on, let's say, TV or a commercial or somewhere. So it could be echolalia. And it's not necessarily a bad thing either. We are actually pretty encouraged when a child has echolalia, because it shows that the child can develop speech. So if you are concerned if your child is doing that, then I would recommend that you see a specialist. Anyone who works in the field of autism, preferably someone who is a diagnostician, they can very easily tell you if this is echolalia and if it's a symptom of autism, and they can help you down the path.
And I've gotten some more information since I asked that first question. She's writing in about herself. She says, how do you know if you have autism? Some days I feel like I don't have it. Sometimes I feel like I don't have it. I have had a diagnosis, but she says my social worker said I could have Tourette's. But she is saying that she does have a diagnosis, I believe.
That is, yeah. I mean, it is possible to have Tourette's and autism together. And it would be very, very important to identify if you have Tourette's, because There's a whole different series of treatments and such for Tourette's. And it would be really important to identify. And when it comes to autism, you could, it makes sense that you feel sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't, because autism is a really wide spectrum and lots of different symptoms. And sometimes you could have, you could, exhibit some of the symptoms, but not the others. Don't forget, the more you learn, the more you lose the symptoms of autism. Autism is malleable, we can change it. So that's the whole purpose of what we do, of the therapy that we do, is to help people come out, lose their symptoms. And so it is possible that this repetition of words, if you feel that you have no control over it, if it's a repetition that just blurts out at any given time, it is possible that it could be Tourette's. I would really recommend that you see someone who is a specialist who can help you with that.
Thank you so much for that. Bonnie says, good morning. How can I help my 6-year-old son to get more conversational speech? He requests and answers yes or no, but does not engage in conversation. He is functionally verbal.
Right. Very good. And that's what we love to do. And so I would really, really recommend that you get on skills, because there's no one answer I can give you that helps you here. There's a million different lessons that your child would learn, and then we bring them together. So for example, your child is now functionally communicating with you, but we need to get them to the point where they're tacting or describing things that they see. And then we need to get them to the point where they are doing intraverbals, which is talking about things that are not physically present. And so there's steps to doing all of this. And along the way, we increase the vocabulary. So for instance, right now, he might just have a few verbs and a few nouns. We would need to increase the adjectives and just continue to put them together in sentences that are useful and functional, and that there's not to overwhelm anyone, but for children under the age of 8, there's roughly 4,000 lessons in our curriculum. So I really recommend that you look at both our skills curriculum, which is again skillsforautism.com. And there you will start by answering a lot of questions about your child. And as you answer these questions, we will be able to determine exactly what your child needs. So the program will only kind of give back to you a whole array of program lessons that your child needs, not things that he already has mastered, and not things that are above his age level, just the things that he needs to learn right now. And then the program will kind of guide you, and you will need to select a series of lessons so that you can work on those. You will need to have a technique, and obviously the technique I recommend is ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis. And if you'd like to learn more about ABA, that's our other website, which is the Institute for Behavioral Training, which is ibehavioraltraining.com. And there you will learn everything about how to use the techniques of ABA to actually teach those skills to your child. A conversation is just one of many, many skills. And it's very, very doable. So please be encouraged. It's wonderful that he has functional communication. We can definitely help.
And we also had somebody with a 15-year-old wanting recommendations for conversational social skills. And we not only have, there's the availability for all of us to go and look at skills, but there is also Skills Living, which has things that are for older kids as well. Although Skills itself has social conversational skills as well. So, but maybe we want to give both of those again, skillsforautism.com, and then there's skillsliving.com that would be very, very interesting for you to take a look at. Plus, which we have talked a lot about the different steps. I got to say, Dr. Granpeesheh, that we hear this a lot from people, that their kiddos are speaking, they're functionally communicating, that they're labeling things, that they can say yes or no, but everybody's trying to get to that conversation part. And I want to reiterate what you said, that in skills, it's very easy to see that arc. This whole last week, we've been doing the verbal operants for our jargon of the day. You guys can check those out on the playlist on our YouTube page or on our own channel. Through all of them and talk about them individually and why they and how they build so that you get to the conversation. But I think a lot of times the problem is that there are, oh, my internet is unstable. Sorry. The problem is that there are speech and language pathologists who are teaching labeling. And then there are some really great speech and language pathologists who understand the interverbal, but a lot don't. And this is why I really want to remind everybody why ABA is so important, and not just to take speech. Because with ABA, you get to that conversation. Help me out here, Dr. Granpeesheh, do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And you said it really well, Shannon. I think that, I mean, it's useful to have functional speech, right? To be able to just say what you want, for instance, that's important. But it's a whole different level of useful when you get to conversation. I really think if any of our viewers go on skills and they look in just the social conversation lessons or just the language curriculum as a whole, they will see exactly what you and I are talking about here, because it really has a lot to do with just that. It's very good to have functional speech, but bringing all of it together. You know, conversation, Shannon, I've often said it has a lot to do with perspective taking, being able to see the other person's perspective. It has to do because you have to sort of pause, you have to pay attention to their response level. We have lessons, as you know, that deal with things like, how do I join a conversation when there's a group of kids around me? How do I change the subject? How do I repair the conversation if people look like they're about to walk away? How do I regulate myself so I'm not talking about just the things I like? How do you know? There's a million different aspects to conversation. At the very basic level, it starts by just being able to talk about things that are physically not in front of you, and those are the basic intraverbals. And so we have a really good path for a conversation, and I do recommend that people should look at that.
And it's amazing when you see it in action. It's like one of the coolest things I've ever said. I always referred to it as the autism miracle in my living room. So I think it's remarkable. And that was what my son had, was exactly what you'll find in the skills curriculum. Okay, I'm going to move on because we got a bunch of questions. They really took my suggestion to heart to write in earlier. I'm already panicking. Are we going to get everything in? Okay, so be patient with me, you guys. Somebody wants to know, have you seen a kid progress really well and then regress and then progress? Or once they regress, is that it? Bad schooling and bad programming. And she also goes on to say that she's in mediation now, and your advice about how much information they should give the school, which is a tough one.
That is a tough one. Shannon, could you repeat it? I'm afraid you come in and out for me. I don't know if I'm also choppy for our viewers.
You have not been choppy for me, and I did get a thing saying my internet was low, so I'm going to work on that while you answer this question. But the question was, have you seen a kid progress really well and then regress and then progress? Or once they regress, is that it? And they're attributing it to bad schooling and bad programming. and they want to know if they should give information to the school while they're in mediation, how much to disclose.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I wouldn't, yes. So the entire course of 3 or 4 years of ABA is this whole, for the majority of kids, it's this process of progressing and either plateauing or regressing and then progressing again. So this back and forth thing is, I wouldn't worry too much. I would fix it, but I wouldn't think that it means anything bad. What it means can be a million different things. Yes, it could be that the particular therapists who are working with the child are not focused on the right things. It could be that the child is not sleeping. It could be that the child is having an allergic reaction to something. It could be that the child is eating something that is causing him or her to be a little bit more cloudy. I mean, it could be a million different things, right? So that is the whole, that's the job of your BCBA supervisor, is to sit with you. And at least in our clinics or in ABA, that's what we do, is we hope that our behavior analysts can sit and problem solve and figure out what is going on, because that's a very important thing. And that's why we meet regularly with our families, at least once every month, to sit down and say, how are things? Are we still moving along? Because we see the data is maybe plateauing or it's gone backward. That kind of stuff happens all the time. And it's important to figure out what the reason is and to fix it. I think,
Sorry.
Shannon, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
I'm unmuted now. So we've got a parent who's writing in about a young man who is obsessive about things, and that in particular right now he's obsessive about, they're bringing me in the cord right now, that he's obsessive about women, that he's going up to women anywhere ages 5 to 55 and asking them to be his girlfriend. The hormones are a little bit crazy, and she's wanting to know what can she do to, because it's making it hard for people in the community who don't want to be around him and to make friends. It's all very, very difficult.
Yeah. Yep. And that is, that happens. And, we think it has a lot to do with this area called theory of mind, or lack of perspective taking. A lot of our kids have a difficult time seeing another person's perspective, simply because they don't see their own mind as being separate from other minds. So as a result of that, obviously, if you don't see the other person's perspective, you kind of start to see the world as your playground, in a sense. And you don't really think, if I'm going to follow this person around, or I'm stalking someone, or I'm getting too close to them, you're not thinking about how they feel. You're not thinking, oh my God, this could be possibly making this individual very uncomfortable. So those are the things that, if you're in a good ABA program, and when the child is young, we start teaching a lot of different lessons that have to do with taking someone else's perspective. In fact, honestly, Shannon, I think sometimes we go overboard, in the sense that our kids end up being able to take other people's perspectives better than the norm. Like, they just become extremely empathetic and sympathetic and very, very able to think about how others think, And if you're an adult and that has not been part of your overall development over many years, it's still not too late. You as the parent just have to understand that you need to kind of make some rules about things, and you need to explain things that might not, otherwise you might not think like, oh, why should I have to explain that? So I would maybe videotape the child or the adolescent when they're doing these things, and then later sit with him and explain, when you do this, how do you think this person feels? And just, if they don't know, just write it down. We use these things called comic strips. We'll draw figures and you'll say, you do this, and this is how this person feels. And, just have a feeling bubble that's like next to their heart. And it says they're feeling afraid, maybe they're feeling scared, maybe. And then you can have a thought bubble as well that says, what do you think they're thinking? And help your child by giving them the answers and helping them understand how different people feel if you get too close to their territory or in their territory or in their space.
I hate
You're on
me
mute.
this morning. I know. I hate me this morning. But I was just saying, I love this, and I wish we could give this training to everyone. And I think it's important that we give this training to all of our young men on and off the spectrum about what it feels like in personal space for a woman. And then, we, across the board, not just the male female thing, how we're making other people feel. I wish we had perspective taking for the world lessons. Okay, but I really want to get to this question because I really need to send a virtual hug to this mom. She says, I have a question regarding my nonverbal autistic daughter. She's 7 years old and I recently had a baby and she can't stand the sound the baby, the newborn makes. She's been screaming and banging her head and literally crying tears. We've tried to separate them at all times. We tried slowly introducing the baby, which she doesn't mind when he's quiet, but as soon as he starts cooing, she gets upset. What can I do?
Yeah, so that is a very, very difficult situation. It is extremely important, first of all, to find out if the child is, if your daughter is crying and screaming because of the sound of the baby crying, which could be a sensory issue, which I will give you some suggestions for. Or if your child is screaming because they've now lost the attention they used to have from you, which is a very common thing when a second child comes into the family. So assuming that this is really a sensory issue, which please, all of our, over the years, I've learned that it is so important to pay attention to the fact that our kids really do have, some of our kids, not all of them, but some of them really, really do have very sensitive hearing. And it's important to give them a tool to survive. So I would suggest for your child, if you determine that it really is about the crying, and so the child, your other daughter doesn't have an issue with the baby, just has an issue when the sound of baby crying, then I would have your daughter buy your daughter some of these noise canceling headphones. I love those. They help our kids so much. Make a little area maybe in each room that you are with your children, like let's say in her room, in the living room, maybe in the kitchen, depending on how your house is. Like put a bean bag in the corner, put the noise canceling headphones there, put some of her favorite toys there. And when this happens, don't get mad at her at all, just guide her over. And in fact, maybe before it happens, I would suggest that you show your daughter how the noise canceling headphones work. Put them on her, play some of her favorite music. In fact, teach her to use them, because sometimes, and I forget, Shannon, if we know the age of the older child.
Seven.
That's great. So, I mean, she can use these with music. She can use them with something on a computer, like her favorite TV show or show on a computer, but teach her how to use them. And I promise you, it's life-changing when you teach your child how to use a tool, an object. It's just like going outside and putting your sunglasses on. Think of it that way. For our kids, they are very, very sensitive to certain sounds. And as long as we can teach them, especially when you're home. Now, when you're outside, it's a little bit of a different issue because of safety. But when you're home, she can absolutely block out that sound by putting on some headphones and looking or listening to something else. And actually that location will become useful to you. We often use a kind of, this is my rest place. This is my kind of Shangri-La. It's my place where nobody can bother me. And if for any other reason, if your child starts to get upset, tell your child to go there. Shannon, when Nikki was very little, if she would start to tantrum or something, I had taught her, I would tell her, go to the hallway or go to another room. And she was so, even if she was super angry, she'd walk into another room, close the door, and like have her tantrum there and then come back out. And so like, having a peaceful, nice area where you can like de-escalate is something good for the kids anyway. And I just think it's fair for our kids to be able to give them the ability to shut out certain noises. Now, nowadays, we're so lucky because you can actually gradually fade back from that. So those big ones that go over your ear, now the earbuds, now they make the ones that are actually somewhat noise canceling. So they go in your ear, you can kind of hear the outside, but not really. And then ultimately, of course, you can, fade even that away to regular headphones where you can hear the outside, but you can also hear something that you're listening to.
Amazing. By the way, many people are writing in and saying thank you and that your words are giving them so much hope. I just want, and somebody said, love it, Doreen. So question here about interverbals. Mom says, my son is still working on this, and she has a sad face. She says he's so fluent when it comes to doing echolalia, but when he's putting his own words together, it takes a bit longer.
Yeah, but and you should ask Mom, are you actually doing a full, how old is that child? Do we know?
She did not say, and I should know, but I don't remember.
The question is, how many hours are you doing ABA? How many hours of ABA are you doing? Is it good ABA? Is your child gradually making progress? You never go from echolalia to intraverbals. That just isn't the case. You go from echolalia to manding to tacting to intraverbals. So there's a whole process that you go through, and it's important. It's like saying, with a typically developing child, whether they can go from just saying mama to hi mom, how's your day? You can't really make that jump. You have to go through these steps.
Child is 11.
Okay. Even if the child is 11. So the question really is, how much practice or how much work is being done on this particular concept? And have you tried to, is your child manding? That means, is he requesting? Is he tacting? Is he pointing to objects and talking about them? Those are the steps that happened before.
So this mom wants you to know that her child is doing 20 hours of ABA right now. She's an RBT. And she said, no, we didn't. And yes, we did. And I don't know which, I don't know which thing, no, we didn't. And yes, we did. I'm so sorry.
No, it doesn't matter. If you're an RBT, fantastic. Like, we have nothing else to worry about at this point.
Yeah. It's just stay the course, right?
And going on the right course. So you are an RBT, get on skills, please. I am begging you to go on skills. It will change your life. You'll understand it because you're an RBT. You'll fully get it and you'll follow it, and it will take your child to places you cannot believe. So please get on skills, and it will guide you step by step how to move him or her forward.
And she wants you to,
how wonderful that this mom has the ABA knowledge.
Yes, and he is manding and tacting. So and she says, I was just kind of making a statement, but I'm glad that we talked about it honestly, because there are other people who don't know what you know that needed to hear that it is frustrating, and that, but that you are doing all the right things and you're staying the course. And she has been doing that since he's 3. So that's wonderful. Okay, I'm starting to feel that thing of we're not going to get to everything, but Somebody has written in and several times, so I'm going to attend to it. How many types of autism are there?
Oh gosh. You know, that's a really good question. And there are so many different types of autism. I'll try to answer that as a clinician who has seen kids for 40 somewhat years. And then I'll try to answer it as a kind of scientist researcher, because we've also published on this.
Mm-hmm.
So as a clinician who's been seeing kids for 42 years, there's autism, the symptoms of autism also have changed over the years. The type of autism that I used to see back in the 80s is different. I don't see that level of severity anymore, thankfully, because we used to see very, very, very severe autism, stuff that you guys at this in this world, in this lifetime, you wouldn't believe. But there are many different types of children, just like there are many different types of people in the world. So there are children who are visual learners. That's really important. They have a very, very strong visual memory. And with those children, we have to learn to teach them everything through a visual modality. Like they need to see pictures or something visual that helps them. They learn better that way. There are hyperlexic children. So these are children who have an uncanny ability to read and manipulate letters. And these kids often teach themselves how to read things from age 2 without anyone even teaching them. With those children, we use the written word a lot to help them to start to communicate and to learn. There are children who are always going to be nonverbal, but that doesn't mean that they can't communicate. Their being nonverbal could have to do with a million different things, that one of which could be just apraxia. They could have very severe inability to move their tongue around, so they can't really produce words or sounds. That's okay. A lot of those children go on to communicate through augmentative devices where they type, or icons where they can touch, or even they can do sign language. So there's a whole variety, and then from those are just a few examples of different children. Like you have children who will have a hard time learning if you present a stimulus to them up close and you have to have the stimulus out far. So I can't even begin to list the different types of autism. I can tell you that over the years, we have gathered millions of data points in our database, which is skills database. And so we look at how children learn. So the two things, skills measures a lot of things, but the two very important things for me that are measured on skills is, how fast is the child learning and how fast are their challenging behaviors decreasing, right? Those two things. And so when you look at those two things as an outcome measure, and you look at all the other variables in the child's life, like for instance, if a child sleeps well, they learn faster. If a child doesn't have an underlying medical illness, they learn faster. If a child doesn't have pain from a physical illness, they're not going to have a lot of challenging behaviors. Those types of correlations. And when you look at all of the children globally, so we looked at something like 9,800 children and several million data points. And we were able to see 16 specific subtypes. And those specific subtypes had to do with these learning patterns, the way kids learn. Some kid, and it had to do with, look, this subtype all learn these particular lessons very quickly. This is the visual subtype. These kids don't even have an issue with the majority of their basic programs. This is the sort of Asperger's subtype. So we were able to find these 16 behavioral subtypes. I think there's more than that. And I think they definitely, through our data set, you can see it, they all kind of overlap a little bit with each other. And what's important, I think, is that ultimately on the, on one side of the spectrum, it kind of starts to merge into ADHD, and then it starts to just merge into what we call typical. And it's very interesting because it's not just about, when we think of autism, we only think about weaknesses or areas of deficit, but it's not really the case. A lot of our kids with autism also have incredible strengths that the typical population, us, we don't have. They have amazing memory. They have incredible musical talent. They have incredible artistic talent. They have unbelievable like visual memory or ability to memorize things and keep them. And they have specific mathematical abilities that we don't have. There's a lot of stuff that some of the kids have. So it's just the way to look at it is in my mind, after 40 years, is to just kind of look at it as an extension of, like in research, there's this thing we call the normal curve, right? And it's just, it's a curve. I think it's called the U-shaped curve in lay language or whatever, but it's basically the majority of people fall kind of in the middle. And then there are outliers, right? There are people who are extremely talented, and then there are people who have extreme issues or deficits, right? And so I see autism as having a little bit of both. They're just extreme differences. And our goal has always been not to necessarily completely eliminate all of those differences, but to bring the individual into the norm so that they can function well in life. That's really the key. And I think that's the way to look at it. It's like, you never really want to change the kind of the quirks or the personality of the individual, because some of that stuff is just their brilliance. And it comes out when they're able to communicate. What you want to do is try to teach them all the things that help them function in society. Like right now is a great example, Shannon, with COVID. If I say, hey, everything is fine with me, but I refuse to put on my mask. I just refuse for whatever reason. Well, I'm not going to be able to go outside. I won't be able to because people won't let me, right? So there's certain things like that with autism. Like if someone says, I don't want to put on my clothes, well, you can't go outside. If I just, I don't want to, I'm going to scream everything that I want. Well, you can't mingle with people then. So that's what we're trying to do, is trying to teach all the things that allows the person to live with as well as they can in society. Long answer.
I love it though. And a lot of people are writing in how much they love skills and saying skills definitely covers it all. It's mind blowing. One parent is writing in and saying that they're having a little bit of trouble figuring skills out. They're not a card parent. They're wanting to know who to connect to. And I just want to be clear that so there are card parents. If you're already in card, you already have a skills account. And there are people in your office and you're on your team that are prepared to help you with skills. If you are not a card family, you can still get access to skills. That's still available to the public. It's a different group of people. But if you're here, and I always say, call over to skills if you want to get, it's a subscription, it's a monthly thing. Ask them for the friends and family discount from Autism-Live. Tell them that you heard it here and they will give you a discount. I think it's 10%, and 10% is nothing to sneeze at, right? But for this mom, you know me, and I'm happy to walk through skills with you. I love to take a walking tour of skills with a family member because it keeps me refreshed on skills, because I used it for a lot of years and I don't personally anymore. So it almost be doing me a favor. So you can write directly to me. We'll set up a time, and you already communicate with me. So I think we're going to be fine. Okay, so somebody else wrote in and said, by the way, we have a lot of people watching from India and Dubai today. Welcome, everyone. Yes. Somebody says, ma'am, I have a 4-year-old child with mild autism. She is a nonverbal child with some babbling, and also she is restless. Ma'am, if you kindly can give me your valuable suggestions from YouTube. There we go.
Yeah, I really would recommend for our families that they should. If I was just starting out in the field, Shannon, I think, and I agree with that one family. Skills can be overwhelming. It's not as user friendly as I would like it. I always say that we ended up putting too much into skills, but IBT is very user friendly, and I think I would start there. If I was a parent, I think the most useful thing would be to learn some of the techniques. So what I recommend for that family is to go on ibehavioraltraining.com. And Shannon, as you know, IBT is very, very inexpensive. Some of the modules of training that we have put on IBT are like, $12. And these are video trainings by subject. So for example, you as a starting parent, if you go on there, you will see a whole list of really interesting topics that you might be interested in to learn. So just things like, what is ABA? How does it work? What should I do when my child has a tantrum in public? How should I teach my child language? There's a lot of really, really good topics on there, and you just pick one and you can view it, and you have access to it for, I think, a month or maybe more. I'm not sure how long once you purchased it. You can get a lot of people to come and view it and learn that module, and then do another one next week and do another one next week. And I promise you, if you gather, especially times like this, if you have a team of people helping you and you all watch one video per week, in 2 months, you will know quite a lot more, and you'll then be able to start actually setting up a program and working with your child.
Yes, and I want to say that every week there are, during this COVID emergency, there are some of the trainings that are available for free. I haven't gotten the email this week about which ones, but I'm looking to see if I can get that information before we finish the show today. But we've only got a couple of seconds here. But go to ibehavioraltraining.com. There is a phone number, and you can call and say, Shannon didn't know which ones were free this week. And you can do that. And people are asking, Traven, if you would post the links to skills and IBT in the comments so that they have them. I think that would be really great. We probably only have time for one more question, but I think it's a really important one. And by the way, yes, they're writing in asking, is it available in the UK? Yes, it's available worldwide. And I also, somebody wanted to know, somebody wanted to know if we were recording this, and yes, we are. So you can always look back at this and watch this later. But the question I think I want to end on, because it's one that's really, I think, a very important question. Is NET better than table work doing ABA? My son seems to learn more through NET. And for some people who don't, like, there are probably people who don't know what NET is. But we've only got 5 minutes.
Sure. Of course. Yeah, and I have to be right on time as I have another show right after this, something else. Okay, so NET stands for Natural Environment Training, and it is a type of ABA. So let's start with that. When they talk about table time, I think they're referring to discrete trial training, or DTT, which is a more structured form of ABA. So what we do here at CARD is that we generally will start with a type of ABA that's called errorless. And that means we give a lot of help to the child so that they don't make any errors. It is a form of DTT, and so DTT is based on the premise that you give a stimulus, you give a signal or an instruction, and then you wait for the child to respond, and then you reinforce it. And that's a discrete trial. So it starts with your instruction, the child's behavior, and then the consequence, A, B, C, or antecedent behavior consequence. And that is a discrete trial. And you do many of those back to back. And when you teach something, and it's a lot more complicated than that. I just kind of simplified it, but it is NET is much less structured. So we generally will start with DT. Once something is mastered in DTT, we will move to an NET format just to make sure the child generalizes. That means we want to make sure the child will use that, whatever they learned, in real life. And NET is like real life. It's like walking around the house and talking about the things and pointing out. I find it's more effective if you combine discrete trial and natural environment rather than do one or the other. Because discrete trial is like intensive tutoring. It teaches your child the subjects faster and you don't have time. And NET then makes the child realize how this applies to their real life. So the combination, always doing discrete trial and a little bit of NET and a little bit of discrete trial, and a little bit of NET is what I recommend. Now, having said that, you want to make sure your discrete trial format is very rewarded because some children just react negatively to that kind of structure, and you have to kind of work them into it. You want to give a lot of rewards so the child gets used to it. No child really likes to sit and have, 30, 40 hours of intensive tutoring. So it is very understandable if a child reacts initially, but it is good for them because they learn very fast through DTT. I mean, if you just do DTT, on the other hand, many children have a hard time applying it to their real life. So combined method is better.
I love that answer. And I just want to say from a parent perspective that a lot of times we think that our kids are learning more from the NET because that's when the good part comes, but the DTT laid the groundwork on which the good stuff could come. So please listen to Dr. Grant-Bichet and do both of them. We only have a minute and a half here, but I do have what is free from IBT the rest of this week. So the trainings, so if you go to ibehavioraltraining.com, and then you're going to go to the top where it says community, family, and then you click on that. Then there's another drop-down menu. You'll pick parent training. And then the trainings that are free this week are tackling autism as a family. So that includes explaining the diagnosis to others, who needs to know and who doesn't, explaining the diagnosis to my friends and family, explaining autism to my other children, explaining autism to my child with autism, preparing for the holidays, making holiday breaks a success, preparing for spiritual situations, how to support my child in our house of worship, how to have a success at the doctor's office, and preparing my home to prevent emergencies. There's more. Preparing for after school activities and camps.
I'm going to leave you that.
What's that?
Yeah, I'm going to leave you if that's okay.
Okay. No, you go. Thank you. We adore you. You go. I'll talk to you later. Love you. Bye. Also preparing for after school activities and camps, how to choose the right after school activities, camps, and hobbies for my child, ethical issues, dual relationships, what are they and how to avoid them. And the last one, why children with autism may be victims of abuse and what you should know. They are all free. So you go again at the top of the page, it'll say Health and Human Services. You click on that. Then you click on Caregiver. Then you click on Parent e-learning. And then when you get them in your cart, all of those trainings that I just listed off, you want to put in the code COVID-19. It is all caps, and there is a hyphen between the COVID and the 19. So COVID, all caps, hyphen or dash 19. And then if you did what's right and picked only the ones that were free, it will zero your account out, so you will owe absolutely nothing. That's at ibehavioraltraining.com. That's just this week. Like, I don't know if that changes on Friday or Monday. So get them. If you get them now, go in and get them now, and then you'll have them. And I do think you get to have them for a month. So I hope that you guys will take part in that. I want a little programming note here. We are not going to be live tomorrow or Friday. We've been trying to be live every single day. And we just did some really great shows last week. And so we're going to replay the episode tomorrow that was Temple Grandin talking about how to find and feed your child's passion. So it's a replay, but it's going to air tomorrow. And then on Friday for Let's Talk Autism, we're going to replay our show from last week with Nava and Matt Asner. We're going to be back doing live shows on Monday. I'm just going to be honest that I need to take a couple of days because of the loss of my friend Joanne. I need some time to process that and to work on her memorial, which we will be doing a week from Saturday for anybody who is interested and would like to. It's going to be online, a worldwide event with amazing speakers and some amazing performers to remember the life and celebrate the life of Joanne Lara. If you are wanting to support Joanne and her efforts, what she did for the autism community, please feel free to make a donation. There's no flowers. It's a virtual ceremony. There's no flowers. Please feel free to make a donation. You can go to autismworksnow.org or autismmovementtherapy.org, and there are places to donate there. But I will be back with you on Monday. And I just want to thank you all because I know it's been a really rough week for me, and having your friendship and your compassion and being here with me has meant the world to me. So thank you all. I will see you next Monday, but please tune in to watch the pre-recorded shows. But until Monday, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.